A state-contracted snake hunter clears pythons at an abandoned Cold War rocket compound and finds ritual objects, child-sized dolls and snakes that do not flee, revealing a fed, older presence that will not let him leave. Dusk is thick when I cut the chain and force the gate. The rusted Aerojet sign swings and scrapes concrete. My flashlight throws jaundiced light over flaking letters. I expect trash, tires, a bloated python under a bridge. I do this work, I know the smell of swamp and rot. This place smells different, mold, old gasoline, iron, and something sweet under it. The latch gives with a sound like an old cough. A pile of rocks sits by the entrance and an upside-down cross is charred on top. Somebody stacked it on purpose. Spray paint runs down the concrete in long Latin letters. Turn around. Run, my head says, but the paint is fresh. Drops still bead on the stones. A rag doll leans against the sign, head bowed, forehead marked with a black cross. I lift it because I check everything. A scarlet snake is coiled at its throat. Its scales look too bright, almost new. The snake bleeds and the blood is wrong, too clear, almost neon, so wrong I feel it in my teeth. Something scratches metal far inside the compound, a slow, dragging sound. My radio light blinks. The truck idles at the gate with two men staying inside. "You sure you want to be here?" Frank asks. His voice crackles. I say nothing because I don't know what to say. I press the doll to my chest and feel the snake's muscles flex. Its single glass eye glints at me from under the drawn cross, and for a moment it flashes a light that is not mine. Then it goes still and cold as a marble. I start walking in. The eye's reflection lingers long after I look away, like a burn on the back of my eyes. I think about leaving, then I think, no, there is work to do. The courtyard under the collapsed launch tower smells of wet concrete and old oil. My boots kick pooled water and my beam hits fresh spray paint, long letters dripping down a wall. The paint is still soft where the light passes and the warning runs like a wound. Nails stick out of a beam and a child's dress is nailed there, skirt stretched and stiff. A loose shoe lies half buried in mud, toe pointing back the way it came. A trail of small marks winds from the dress toward a dark tunnel mouth. The trail looks serpentine and deliberate. There's wax on the ground, chips that crumble under my boot. The air tastes cold and metallic like a hospital after hours. Something knocks on concrete, knock, pause, knock, moving down the courtyard and stopping, and the nailed dress twitches though no wind blows. I crouch and wipe dust from the tunnel lip. Someone pressed a small handprint into it, deep enough that my fingers find the edge. It is child-sized. I rub my thumb along the ridges and feel the faint oil of old skin. "Come on, Mike," I tell myself. "Think." My radio crackles, the truck is farther off now. My partners won't come in and I should leave, but I don't. I follow the marks into the mouth and the handprint stares back like a promise. For a breath another print appears beside it, so faint I could be imagining it. I tell myself I'm not imagining things, and that if this is a crime scene I'll bag evidence and walk away. I don't leave. The tunnel mouth smells of burnt wax. My boot sinks into a puddle and sticky wax pulls at the sole as I go in. The flashlight eats along cracked walls and childish symbols crawl outward in smeared hands, circles, letters, shapes that look like counting and prayer. The passage opens into a wide chamber. A pentagram is scrawled across the floor in something faintly gleaming. A broken plastic chair sits in the center. Its seat is soaked and clotted. A sleeping bag lies folded near the marks and it shifts when the air moves, heavy with something that breathes slow. At the doorway a cluster of snakes waits, not coiled to attack but gathered like watchers. They watch me with tongues flicking. They do not come forward. The doll I took from the gate is propped on that broken chair, facing the room. The throat where the snake had been is stitched cleanly. I step closer and the doll's glass eye picks up my flashlight beam. For a breath it reflects back a dozen tiny layered faces, small mouths, small noses, small closed eyes, then goes dull as if someone cut the power. I say, "Get out," to the room and my voice comes back thin. The sleeping bag shifts again and something inside moves. The snakes hold position like sentries. I lift the chair and smell wax and something older beneath it. The room is patient and I am the thing intruding. For a second the doll's eye refuses to reflect anything new. The sleeping bag exhales a long, wet sound. I tell myself I can still call this in and walk away, but my feet stay. Behind the control room, a service corridor narrows. I shove aside a concrete slab and find loose soil underneath, worked recently. My fingers dig and the dirt gives with a dry, hollow sound. I pull up clay and roots and reveal a shallow grave. Inside the scrape I find a child's shoe, cracked leather, and a strip of fabric nailed to a post like a flag. The walls around me are spray-painted with messy confessions. She was only 9, they said. Latin curses braid through the letters and the runoff still beads at the bottom of words. I try the radio. The truck outside clicks and then a voice says, "We ain't comin' in." The engine idles and the heat dies in their cab. Their light splashes across the compound edge and then pulls back. Their fear feels like a cold hand in the dark. My hands find something hard in the dirt. I lift it and a brittle tooth peels free, yellow at the root. The air moves across my neck and a thin whisper slides along my collar, too soft to be wind. I tell myself this is a criminal scene and that I can collect evidence. I wrap the shoe in my jacket and slide the tooth into my pocket. The thing that brushed my neck did not breathe, it counted. The shallow hole yawns open behind me like a mouth, and for a second I can see an indentation as if a body shifted beneath the soil. I should leave. I don't. I step back into the corridor and carry the shoe because I am a professional, and because I can't let whatever this is go unmarked. The control room is a box of stale air. Generators are dead and my flashlight skips as I move, throwing heavy shadows into leaking consoles. I test the main switch, nothing hums. Somewhere, a distant machine coughs and dies. My light finds fresh snake skins coiled like ropes on a desk. They're shivered out and draped with a careful hand, placed to look like line and order. Latin script crawls down a corridor I hadn't noticed. Paint runs in long drips as if someone wrote with a leaking wound. Outside, the truck horn honks once and then goes silent. The sleeping bag I saw earlier shifts in a shelter just outside the control room window. It makes the same slow move, testing the air. I realize it has weight, like a person folded into it. From beneath the floor comes 3 slow knocks, knock, 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 with a pause between that matches an old work signal. The knocking is patient and very close, like someone testing the floor. I whisper, "Turn the light off," as if that will change anything. I walk the tile and every step feels louder than the last. The snake skins on the desk do not shift. The Latin drips extend toward a dark door and the paint looks fresh against the concrete, like a wound sealing. The 3 knocks slow and start counting me. Where the compound meets the swamp, the ground is soft and black. A cluster of snakes slides across the path and forms a living barrier. They press together, heads leveling at me like a raised eyebrow. I push through their bodies. They coil and uncoil but do not strike. They part as if led by a current. Beyond them, old vehicle tracks run deeper into the ruins, and the mark is new enough to leave cleared grass. The doll I tucked inside my jacket is now resting on a rusted engine, mouth crudely stitched open. Its stitches are rough and dark inside. The snakes hiss and freeze, every head tipped the same way, as if listening for a cue I don't hear. A tiny, wet tap sounds against my boot. The doll has tilted and something small strikes leather. I crouch and put a hand on the engine. The metal is cold and pitted. I tell myself I can bag evidence, that I'm a professional, but the snakes are not leaving because of me. I call out, "Show yourself," though my voice feels small in the swamp. The only answer is the hiss of bodies and the distant scrape of metal closer than it should be. The doll's cloudy glass eye turns toward the tracks, following something I cannot see. Under a collapsed fuel tower, the place feels like a throat. Puddles reflect my beam, and the underside of metal is slick with old oil. A length of chain holds a child's dress nailed up like a flag. The nail heads shine coppery and fresh. I move closer and the dress snaps taut, slapping the puddle. Water splashes across my shoes. The dress is stiff with old stains, the hem bleeds dark, sticky drops into my palm. A cluster of snakes has arranged itself in a ring outside the dress, heads turned outward like an audience. Names and dates are carved into a support beam. A smaller, clumsy hand left a short scrawl, letters I can't read but can feel the motion in. The air smells sharp, wax, iron, and something like old sugar. The puddle at my feet ripples though there is no breeze. I whisper, "Who did this?" And the answer is a dry, shallow sound that could be a laugh. A loose shoe rests near the beam. The scuff pattern matches the shoe I bagged. For a second I imagine a procession of small feet and small hands walking into the dark. The puddle ripples again, and a circle of tiny bubbles rises where nothing has fallen. I tell myself to collect notes and leave, but my pen won't stop shaking. Water rises against my shins as I wade into the flooded service tunnel. The beam from my flashlight trembles over slick tiles. The dark down here is thick, even sound feels muffled and far away. Something brushes my ankle under the murk. I haul something up with a wet tug and find a smaller doll, soaked and heavy, its forehead bearing the same black cross as the other. The doll's mouth is wet and stitched. A long snake winds around a pipe nearby. Its scales hold clumps of hair threaded through like a necklace. I feel breath against my neck from the water's surface, a small hot press that smells of iron. The tunnel mouth behind me slams with a metallic clang and the echo lands in my ribs. I am in the dark with slick tile, a soaked doll, and the smell of hair and wax and blood. One snake coils and leaves a small wet footprint against my boot, an odd, almost human print that marks the rubber and then fades. Shapes move in the water beyond my light, soft arcs that blink like eyes. I call their names like a man calling dogs, "Who's there?" But no answer comes. I take the doll and press it to my chest. It is heavier than it looks. The water laps at my legs like fingers. Somewhere in the black, the water makes a small cultured chuckle that sounds like someone rinsing a mouth. Headlights break the tree line at the only road out and my knees feel like lead. I stagger toward the lights thinking rescue. A truck idles with its engine cooling and two flashlights sweep the wrecked concrete. A voice calls my name from the road and relief feels like a warm hand. I move faster. When the beam hits the truck's tailgate, I see a child's scribble scratched into the metal. Footprints ring the vehicle, but they lead away from it, not toward it. The flashlights wink out and then come back, but not both. One small light moves between the trees like a firefly. It drops to knee height and resolves into a glass eye bobbing on a thread. The eye blinks. A tiny voice says my name again, softer, from everywhere and nowhere. "Mike," it croons, and the sound curls inside me like oil. The light at the tree line goes still. I reach for the truck door, the handle is cold and the road feels long. I take 2 steps and hear something like applause from the leaves. The glass eye bobs at my knee and tilts to look up as if waiting for an answer. I think about running. I can't tell if I'm waiting for help or for something else. The truck doors slam without wind and the engine roars and dies like a throat cutting off. I yank the handle. It sticks then gives with a click as if an unseen hand turned it. Inside the cab smells of damp canvas and iron. A sleeping bag I saw earlier rolls and something inside shifts against the fiberglass, exhaling a breath that tastes of old pennies. I try the ignition and the dash blinks then goes dark, dead battery, dead everything, as if the truck decides not to start. Small knocks begin at the window, and the pattern curls into my head like a nursery rhyme I can't place. Pale fingers press flat against the glass from the other side, nail-tipped and smudged with wax and the same dark stains I've been finding. They flatten and peer through, no face, only shadow. My first move is to get out and run, but my legs feel knotted. I say, "Open the door," and my voice sounds thin. When I press my hand to the glass, it meets another. The temp of that hand is wrong, cool and dry as paper. The fingers flatten and spread like a map. I slide in and the seat is warm. I pull the door closed and the fingers press again as if asking to come with me. One finger drags slowly down the glass, leaving a wet black smear where it passed. I count my breaths and try the key again. A grated vent slams down and my boot is trapped for a breath, metal bites. I wrench free and force the grate open, crawling into a narrow shaft that smells of dust and old secrets. The crawl is tight. The beam from my light trembles over ribbed metal. The vent opens into a room of folding chairs facing nothing. Snakes pour from vents and pool under the seats like coiled ropes. Plastic toys and dolls sit in the chairs, all turned forward. Someone has drawn symbols with a dark viscous fluid across every seat. The smell is iron and sweet. My name is scored into the wall in hurried letters that leak when I touch them. The smear becomes a slick line that runs across the floor toward my shoes. I whisper, "You can't have me," and the chairs creak like a crowd inhaling. The snakes do not move. One toy head has been hollowed and fitted with a glass eye. The eye blinks when I look away. There is a rhythm in that blinking that matches the knocks I keep hearing. I back toward the grate, and the smear on the floor crawls forward like a slow worm toward my toes. The vent behind me hums with a low pressure, as if someone is breathing down the shaft. The smear reaches my boot and chills through the rubber. I think I have to get out, but the shaft feels narrower every second. I climb the rusted ladder to the old control tower. A rung breaks under my foot and I fall a jagged breath, landing on my feet on a concrete landing. My shoulder aches, but I keep moving. I tell myself it's nothing. The control room is a small theater of plastic toys and dolls arranged in rows on folding chairs. Each toy has a snake curled around it. Faces have holes cut from them and tiny glass eyes pushed into the sockets. They all look toward the room like an audience waiting for a show. I pick up a small plastic soldier and a snake inside twitches. Its body tightens around the figure. The toys' heads turn in unison toward the door as if someone snapped their fingers. At the front of the room, a child's shoe thumps twice in the hollow floor like a heartbeat. I hold the toy soldier, and the snake inside wants out. Its body presses against my palm and sends a cold climbing my wrist. I hear a whisper from near the ceiling, a syllable I can't place. "This is wrong," I say, and the room answers with a silence thicker than sound. The thumping shoe marks time, and the snakes tighten while the glass eyes pick up my light and do not blink away. I rub my shoulder and think of the shallow grave. I tell myself to stay focused and collect what I can. I go back to the pentagram chamber because it keeps calling. Chalk lines pulse faintly under my light like skin under a bruise. The broken plastic chair is there, and the ragged shape seated on it breathes slow and wet. Snakes lie along the chalk like raised seams, and the symbols on the walls glow with a sick red smear. I try to cut at the markings with my knife. The blade slides and catches as if the chalk is set in something with grain. The chair shifts as if whatever sits there is unfolding. I throw my weight at the ragged shape. It moves in human measures and then pulls back in wrong ways. A strip of a child's dress hangs from its shoulder, damp with dark stains. The thing stinks of wax and iron and an old sweetness I can't name. "Stop," I tell it, my voice flat as a stone. The snakes tighten and press against my legs, warm and heavy. They do not squeeze to spill blood. They coil to hold me upright like stakes. I jab my knife into the circle and the chalk resists with the stubbornness of dried skin. The ragged form reaches and something wet brushes my cheek. The room closes down like a lung folding. The strip of dress quivers and a small, clear breath like a child's comes from the ragged shape. I tell myself I can still end this. A trapdoor in the floor slams open and something climbs up. Its nails scrape wood and metal. I step back and the air fills with wax, blood, and a history I cannot place. Clothes are nailed into its skin, and a child's dress hangs from its torso like a banner. Inside the shaft walls, names and dates are carved in a child's hand. A chain of tiny glass eyes is threaded on a cord, and each eye is warm when I touch it. The thing reaching up has hands studded with nails. Its fingers are porches of glass and rust. Outside, helpers come to the gate with flashlights. Their beams stall at the compound edge like stopped breaths. They shout and throw down fuel, but the fire they start gutters as if someone put it to a pillow. They cannot push the light farther in. The place pushes back. The creature reaches with a hand covered in tiny nails. A chain of glass eyes swings and catches me in the temple. Pain flares and stars scatter and someone at the gate screams. Their voice folds into a different noise, like paper tearing. I stagger back as the chain of glass eyes falls into my palm. Each eye turns to watch me. I taste wax in my mouth, and a small voice says my name from 3 places at once. My temple throbs where the chain struck, and I know I've got to move, though I don't know which way is safe. On the ruined launch pad, the sky is bruised black, and I light a small fire because fire is the only honest thing left that might burn. I expected flames to clear this place. Instead, the doll walks toward me with a gait like imitation, jerky, patient, a child's step slowed. When it stops, the throat where the first snake sat opens and snakes pour free, climbing my legs. They do not bite to spill blood, they tighten like ropes to hold me upright. I should have cut them at the neck. I should have left earlier. I hit the doll into the flames and expect it to scream. The cloth chars and the flames gutter as if fed by air that isn't there. The doll's glass eye reflects not flame but a bank of small faces, mouths open and empty. I strike the doll against concrete and the snakes recoil for a fraction, then gather and press against my chest, winding themselves into braces. My arms burn from holding the thing. The air around me begins to chant in the same rhythm as the knocks I've been hearing all night, the slow, patient code of someone counting bones. The helpers at the compound edge shout and pound truck horns and try to come in. Their lights crawl across the pavement and then stop like bees at glass. The thing kneels and lifts its head to me. It looks almost human if you ignore the nails and the dress and the smell. I pull the doll toward the fire again and it resists. The snakes constrict and the world narrows to heat and glass and wax. I feel small, cold hands touch my shoulder, then another, until the pressure is a line of fingers along my spine. I remember the shallow grave, the tooth, the shoe in my jacket. The chant turns into words I recognize, simple, old, and vicious, and my name folds into the rhythm. My lungs burn and I realize what this was never about. I buried her under the launch pad.